هو في صوت في الخلفية لو ممكن نقفله.
دكتور ممدوح، هنبتدي مع حضرتك معانا؟
ايوه دكتوره، انا مع حضراتكم.
دقيقة بالظبط وهنبتدي. دكتورة زهرة، توكلي على الله.
أنا جاهزة. نبتدي؟
توكلي على الله.
تمام. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything is going well by your side. This is Dr. Zahra Ahmad Al-Muafi, Assistant Researcher of Child Health Department at the Medical Research Division of the National Research Center. It is my privilege and actually my very happy moment today to introduce
everyone. After organizing the first
this closing session of our exclusive course, Elsevier NRC Guide Course for Reviewers. We have started the course 6 sessions ago, and this is the 7th and last webinar within our series of Guide Course for Reviewers. Today, our eminent speakers are Dr. Kanouda Sharda and Dr. Michel Moutzio, scientific editors at iScience. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Mamdouh Mouawad, Vice President of the National Research Center for Research Affairs and International Relations. We are pleased also to welcome again both speakers for the previous sessions, Professor Dr. Mohammed Hashimi, Professor of Urology at the Faculty of Medicine, Asr Al Aini University, Cairo University, and Engineer Khalid Shalain, a co-research solution consultant at Elsevier Africa. We would like to hear from you, Professor Mamdouh Mouawad. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you all in National Research Center, the largest research institute in Egypt, and it's my pleasure to share in opening of this great webinar within the Elsevier webinar series in cooperation with Egyptian Knowledge Bank and the conference unit of National Research Center. In the context of our commitment in the National Research Center to help our research to improve their reviewing skills, National Research Center decided to offer a number of workshops that would be direct not only to our researchers in our National Research Center, but also to other scientific communities such as institutes, centers, and universities inside and outside Egypt. Elsevier, as one of the most famous international specialized scientific publishing house in cooperation with Egyptian Knowledge Bank, offer about 7 session workshop series under the title of Elsevier to National Research Center Guide Courses for Reviewers. The average number of attendances reach about 800 to 1,200 per session, and this number reflects the success of this series. Today, the last session of this series entitled Peer Reviewer Insights from iScience Editor, presented by Dr. Michel Moutzio and Dr. Kanouda Sharda, scientific editor at iScience from Elsevier. I take this opportunity to welcome and thank them for their effort to share their knowledge and experience and for helping us to improve our reviewing skills. Also, I would like to express my deep thanks and appreciation to Egyptian Knowledge Bank, presented by Mrs. Ola Lawrence, Egyptian Knowledge Bank consultant, for the continuous help and support, and for Engineer Khalid Shalain, Co-Research Solutions Consultant, Elsevier Africa, Dr. Mohammed Hashimi, Dr. Zahra Ahmad, Dr. Aya Khalil, and Dr. Hiba Rifai and her team from conference unit for their great effort to set up these workshops. Finally, my best wishes for all participants to spend a successful and fruitful webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mahmoud. Thank you, Professor Mamdouh. It's always a pleasure to be working with the National Research Center in general and conference unit, which you have had very kind patronage over.
Thank you.
As we always look at the National Research Center as being one of the most foremost research powerhouses in Egypt, it is always a pleasure and a commitment from our side to continue to support Egyptian research institutions as part of our efforts at Elsevier Africa team to actually support major research centers and our most prestigious research partners in the entire continent, so Egypt and the entire continent. So it's always a pleasure to have this special relationship with the NRC. I'd like to thank Dr. Al-Zahra for her kind introduction as well. And I would like to welcome our editors, Dr. Kanuda Sharda and Dr. Michel Mudio from iScience. And I'll have to pay our respect to Dr. Mohammed El-Shimi, who has presented 5 of the 7 workshops in this webinar series. I hope that today will add more insights to what we have discussed already in the session with the hands-on part and the details of going through peer review itself. Today, we're going to have a different angle from an editor perspective, how editors work with peer reviewers, and how would they communicate, what kind of insights would we as potential peer reviewers would need to know about how editors work and how they liaise with us. With that, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Michel.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. And thank you. Oh, can I turn on my video? Oh, no, I can't. Okay. So thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for the great honor of being part of this this very informative series. It is really our pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the introductions and just to be part of this really awesome series. You know, Professor El-Shimi has presented so much valuable insight. So if we can just give some fraction of an insight from our perspective on behalf of iScience and the greater Elsevier, we are really appreciative of being here. So thank you so much. So my name is Michelle Mizio. I'm a scientific editor at iScience, and I am presenting today with Kanuda, who's also on the call. And we're both editors at iScience, and we hope that we can give some insight into our perspective and how we see the peer review process, and hope that we can have some discussion at the end of this as well if you have questions. So the outline of our talk today is we're going to talk a little bit about how do I go about selecting reviewers for a specific paper. I want to talk a little bit about iScience, some of the special things that we're doing at the journal that I'm part of to really try to make the review process just a little bit easier. We know that researchers have such limited time. So how can we make this process a little bit easier for you? What editors expect from reviewers? You know, what do the best reviews look like? What do we wish that every review could be like? Some tips from editors, just some common do's and don'ts and some common things that we see that we want to highlight to you. How do we make decisions? I think that's a question I get a lot that I think is worth going into. How do we see ourselves bridging the gap between authors and reviewers? And then, of course, this lovely panel discussion that I can't wait to be part of. We'll close this all off so we can hear from you some questions that you may have or some feedback. So why do we give presentations like this anyway? Why do we take the time to do this? And it's sometimes that I think peer review is sometimes considered this mysterious thing that researchers don't know about it, professors don't know about it, graduate students, postdocs, they don't know anything about it. So we hope that this presentation can kind of elucidate some of these tricky points and hope that it can help at least make it a little bit more transparent, which this whole series has been doing, which is it's wonderful to just be a part of that, in some small way. So the first part is how Oh, okay. How do editors select reviewers? So we consider each specific expertise is needed. We read the paper holistically, and we search for complementary reviewers, right? We don't want reviewers to say the same thing. So we're not going to ask two researchers that might come from the same experience or the same background. We want things that are complementary to each other. And to look at a specific technique or theory and comment on them in unique ways. We don't want them to be severely overlapping in their background when we look for reviewers. We do look and we consider suggested reviewers. I think it's kind of a misconception that we don't do that, that if you put a suggested reviewer there, we're going to ignore it. No, the opposite. I definitely look at suggested reviewers very seriously. And usually they're experts in the field within reason, right? If you suggest somebody that is a conflict of interest, and this gets to the next point, that is not something we want. We want to avoid conflicts of interest. So we want to avoid things that are, maybe former students, former collaborators, recent co-authors. But if you're suggesting reviewers that are not within a conflict of interest, and of course we're going to take it very seriously, because you know better than us probably, who are the experts in your field and who should be reading your paper. So we do take those very seriously. And we do also avoid those opposed reviewers. So almost everywhere where you submit a manuscript, you get the option to decide, maybe there's somebody who you don't want to review your paper. Maybe there is direct competition. Maybe you are all working on a very related area. We take that very seriously. And within reason, we will exclude the people that you do not want to review the paper. So I just wanted to kind of make these first kind of points that sometimes there's misconceptions that we don't do those things. And we definitely do. We do want to take into account, we understand how research works and how these things play out, that the experts in your field, and you also know who there might be direct competition with when you're working on your manuscript. Specifically, what I do as well is I look at recent authors at my journal who might be able to review the paper. They know very well like what we usually look for in a paper, right? So they would actually probably be excellent reviewers, or other closely related journals. We also consider volunteer reviewers. So I think one of the things I want to make clear during this presentation is that, editors love hearing from potential reviewers, potential authors, potential people that just want to be within the ecosystem of the journal. So I often get emails being like, oh, hey, I really want to be a reviewer. How do I do that? And it's pretty easy. You just kind of give your expertise. You show some sort of record that you have published in a certain field. You are expert in a certain field. And we definitely take into account volunteer reviewers, which I think is something that Professor Alshimi has talked about during this series already. So I hope that you can take advantage of that as well. We also select from recommendations that we get from senior scientists. Sometimes, you may be too busy to review right now. There's a little box that you can suggest people who might be possible good reviewers in your replacement. And we take those very seriously. We really care about what these recommendations are. So if you're recommending, maybe postdocs or early career researchers that we might not have caught when we were looking and trying to find reviewers, that would be so helpful for us. And even, we understand that researchers are inherently such busy people. So offering those recommendations, that helps us a lot in selecting reviewers. So I wanted to just say something about my own journal, which is an open access journal as part of Elsevier, and really talk about what we're trying to do to make this process a little bit easier for reviewers. So iScience, the I stands mostly for interdisciplinary. So we are a multidisciplinary journal that really is excited about interdisciplinary research, right? So we publish in the life sciences, the physical sciences, the earth sciences, and everything that is in between. So when it comes to that, sometimes it's really difficult to get reviewers that are on the same page, right? Because how you review a life science paper may be different than how you review a physical science paper, and it may be different than how you review an art science paper. So how do we get reviewers on the same page is something we think very, very seriously about. So at the origin of our journal, the lead editors kind of took a kind of a progressive stance to have structured reviews. So instead of just having a review, which is like a blank box for reviewers to fill in their report, we have a more structured review system where you will have to fill in specific answers to specific questions. And you can not do this if you prefer that white box that you can put all your thoughts in. You can prefer not to do it. But we do have a lot of reviewers that take us up on this, where they will follow the step-by-step guide for reviewers. And what does the structured review include? And Kanuta will go into a little bit more about why we care about these specific areas. But a structured review will look like that it has a recommendation, how do you think about the paper, some major findings that the paper presents, the idea of saying what is optional for publication, which is pretty interesting to think about it that way. Is everything reported well? Additional comments to the authors, even to talk privately to the editor. There is a box for that too. And maybe if the work would be equally appropriate for another journal. So I just wanted to kind of show that as one of the things that we're trying to do, especially thinking about cross-disciplinary work, where sometimes it's hard to find just the right reviewer and to review, to have some systematic review process between the reviewers. If you're interested a little bit in what this looks like, and it could help for other journals as well, if you're reviewing for another journal, maybe some of these points will be appropriate for the other journals as well. So I think with that, Kanuta will take over the next section, which will go a little bit more detailed than what I just showed you right there.
Right. Thank you so much, Michelle, and our colleagues at Elsevier and the NRC in Egypt, and everyone who's attending. So I'm going to just continue with what Michelle just briefly told you about on how do we as editors expect the review reports or the feedback from each reviewer. Generally, we recruit about 2 to 4 reviewers, mostly 3, to get a basic opinion. In terms of what we specifically expect is that obviously we recruit them because they are specialists in the field, and we expect that they understand the concepts that are pitched in the paper or in the manuscript under review, and make a fair comparison of what the results, like the experimental work or theoretical work, or what are the key conclusion or key main points, and the technical work, which is present with the literature. So what we think that each reviewers should ask themselves while doing a peer review is that is this concept already present in the and does this work how is the work properly compared to what is already existing? So in the literature, there will be some techniques, for example, to synthesize a material, but how the current work is making an advancement or a continuation in that field. So the whole idea of peer review is to get feedback from reviewers for the authors so that they can improve their work. And some specific things to look about from the reviewer's side is have the method or the statistics being enough. The other publications that they have identified, they might have their own publication.
Kanuta,
Hello.
hello. Yeah,
Yeah.
we believe your voice has been breaking off a little bit, and it just got interrupted at some point.
I'm sorry about it. Can you please highlight where should I begin with?
I think it was
Or
the last point. You were just before the last
All
point.
right. Sorry about that. I was just stressing upon the methods section and the statistics in terms of how many devices have been characterized in the work, or what are the details of the method section. Maybe there is a technique that's kind of a patent for the group that can be sort of, that is necessary. So all the reviewers should pay some attention to this point and ask questions wherever possible. So with this, maybe we can move on to the next slide. So obviously there are millions or billions of manuscripts, and our reviewers are very, very busy. Not every academic is available. Maybe they are, there are different countries, different sort of levels of work they are doing each day, each month, or per year. So we just want to stress on an important point that please, as you are busy, our authors also have a limited amount of time and energy for one manuscript. So please set realistic expectations that you want to propose for revisions. So ask yourself, have you or can you suggest some further experiments that are needed to prove a concept? For example, if the authors are making some new compound, or synthesizing a material, or characterizing an optoelectronic device, how much experiments are enough, like 2 devices, 3 devices, maybe tailor some parameters and things like that. So what are the realistic things that they can do in a reasonable amount of time? And what experiments are necessary? So like really important, that are very central to, prove the point of manuscript. There is no limit, obviously, to what we can ask, but extra proofs can be given in our optional section of experiments or details needed. You can also ask what you are asking is comparable to other publications in the same journal. So for example, iScience have some sections like limitations of their study in all the manuscripts. So maybe that is something not possible for reviewers to do and can be a part of the future study, but then authors are going to describe this when they get back to the reviewers. So basically setting up realistic expectations, and there can be a number of revisions, obviously, but we understand that both reviewers and authors have to set some realistic expectations. Next slide, please. So yeah, I mean, another thing that we ask our reviewers to evaluate is basically what is the degree of technically correct or robust scientific knowledge they are providing. And if given a chance to undergo a peer review with your paper going to several experts, will it be able to stand up to the scrutiny, like all the questions you can reasonably answer? So reviewers should check how much data is technically valid and what is the quality. Quality can mean that, okay, it can be technically a valid result, but how much data they are showing to reproduce it. So again, coming to the statistics, like how many devices, is there a better way to do a thing? Like in synthesis of low dimensional materials, we have several techniques. So what are the advantages, disadvantages? Then a second one is the degree to which data support is conclusions, like what is enough, like how much you can push the system, what is the results of changing the strategy. Then we suggest reviewers to ask for feedback on the level of advancement. For example, there is a research group, you are peer reviewing, the paper for, and they have already proposed this technique of synthesis or device characterization in their previous paper, but how much they are making advancement from that paper to now. So that level of interest and or the impact. So how much assertive it is going to be, or how much it is going to contribute to the community. So the whole thing is that if a paper is published, how much it can contribute to that set of particular community in the field, first to those who are working in the field, but also those who are not directly working in the field, but somehow benefiting. So if you have a theoretical model in place, obviously your peers will benefit from knowing the theoretical model, but also if experimental scientists wanted to leverage the results from theoretical model, they are able to do it. So that decides how much you are contributing. So reviewers should ask this, in my opinion. Let's go to the next slide, please.
It should
Okay,
be. It should be on the next. Okay, good.
Sure, thank you. So what we specifically ask reviewers to evaluate is first, in a summarizing way, is the key messages communicated clearly in a way that the manuscript is presented or written in the best possible way, just not understood by the specific readers that are reading, but everyone, maybe interdisciplinarily. And secondly, does the manuscript present new insights? So no, I would not say novelty like a huge thing, but obviously there has to be an advancement if it has to qualify to be published at iScience or Cell Press. That will add new knowledge to the existing literature and how it contributes or benefits different research communities. One major thing I think is very important is the ethical issues that are there. It's more of a thing in the life sciences community that I'm aware of than physical sciences. However, if there are some ethics issues involved, please do ask as reviewers about these. And then again, the methods or the statistics accurately reported. If they are not, please do seek answers for that and compare these to the field. I mean, you will have more than one opportunity to ask as reviewers from the authors in number of maybe 1, 2, or 3 revisions. So to make it more robust for publication. Let's go to the next slide, Michelle. Okay, very, very important and useful resources that I would like to recommend are there on our website of Cell Press, which you can get directly on the link here, www.cell.com/reviewers. Basically, this is a good resource for for the reviewers on how you should assess the content of the manuscript. What are the comments you should pitch to the editors, like in confidential remarks to the editors, and how the confidentiality is protected of the unpublished work, which is very important. There can be things that you don't want to ask the authors or let the authors know, but you want us as editors to be taken care of, because we also liaise with them, work closely with them, and how sometimes one manuscript is transferred from one journal to another. So in that case, we as editors might reach out to you because you've already spent your valuable time reviewing them there. And then you would like to actually assess it very quickly in the transfer journal. You can always, this resource and Cell Press website also tells you about how to navigate our online manuscript submission portal, which is called the Editorial Manager. And if it does not suit your time, you can go about to decline the review request and let us know, as Michelle mentioned, on how or who others can be potential candidates for review. And the other link that I wanted to highlight is on Researcher Academy's website, which is a certified, which provides certified peer review courses. And there are 12 modules, which are quite short in terms of each module being less than 1 hour. And it trains you basically in your own time and opens your eyes to many different aspects of reviewing all these tasks. Thank you. So basically, just to let you know that what we as editors think of what can be the do's and don'ts of please do not do this from our opinion and perspective is first, very important, please consider your bandwidth. You are very precious because you are an expert in the field in terms of time and your energy. So take as many reviews as you can realistically do. So also do consider if you have a direct conflict of interest, which means that if there are very few research groups working on a particular field, there can be cases that we as editors do not find many reviewers. So we might be reaching out to you, but then we suggest you to kind of deal with the situation realistically and not, go ahead with any conflict of interest. As I mentioned, and Michelle mentioned as well, always ask the questions like, what is there? What new is there? Why they are doing this? And how actually they are achieving to solve the problem. Do be very critical, but be also aware that on the other side of the table, it is a human or a group of human beings that are doing some actual research, and comment on the work in relation to very, very specific technical questions, but also on broader ideas on what is the research going to end up in, and how it is going to benefit each community. Then do reach out to us, the editors, if you have any questions. We are always there for you. We are responsive people, and if you need more time, but you're dealing with other situations in real life, which is very true in Corona, situation currently, we are very flexible on extension of timelines. Because as editors, we have to manage the side on our turnaround times for our authors, which are very, very impatient and curious about hearing from us and the reviewers, but also we want to give appropriately enough time to our reviewers to evaluate the whole paper or the manuscript and give us a very good feedback. Let's go to the do nots of don'ts. Please do not tell us about the typos or formatting issues. Like, these are fixed at author's end eventually, or at our journal publication team by production or our editorial assistants, unless there is a highly big impact from the clarity on the message. Do not please tell us this because it does get fixed. Trust us. Then do not consider a previous repetition of the authors. Like, if someone is a very big achiever in the field and they are not presenting very exciting results, it can go either way actually. So do not please consider the repetition of these authors. Don't be unresponsive if possible. Please respond to our request or emails, which is kind of gives us as a clear picture on how we should take ahead as editors and keep our authors informed, because it's a two-way process. Please do not share reviewing tasks with others. If you would like to, because you're busy or you want extra opinion on the matter, please do tell us. And because it will be arranged in that way, we will be happy to go ahead with it. And as we mentioned before, please don't be overcritical of things. Everyone's kind of human, and it does feel bad if unrealistic things happen during the peer review, which is not just associated with the authors, because once you are the reviewer, you will be an author as well. So yeah, let's move ahead.
Thank you so much for that overview of the do's and don'ts, and I think about those things often. So it's good to see it all, on the screen. So I think based on all of that, I'm going to give you some insight into how we as editors make decisions based on the reviews, based on your expert opinions. How do we go about making decisions, and what does this process look like? Because it's really important to you to know where you fit in all of this. So when we are about to come to a decision, we've gotten review reports, we want to see what we're going to do with the manuscript. We, of course, number one, consider the feedback and the expertise of the reviewers. And sometimes, our own advisory boards, we may ask a specific question about a paper. We consider the feedback very holistically. We don't necessarily just say if you said reject or accept. We think about it very holistically, and we really read every single line of a review to really understand what it means for the findings of the work and what it means for the broader community. We consider our own editorial opinion. When we see the manuscript, when it first comes in, we think very critically, is it within the scope of the journal? Is the reviewer feedback matching with what we originally thought? Is it at odds? We are often surprised when expert reviewers come back and they bring up some points that we didn't even think about, and we love that. We love changing our minds when we are wrong. I love being told, what points that I should be thinking that I wasn't thinking about before. We consider the general interest level as well as the technical concerns of the reviewers. We really think, as I said before, every single line of a review. We don't just look for the summary phrase. We don't just look for the easiest way out. We want to see every single part of it, and we want to understand if the manuscript is serving the community in some way. Is this research going to be serving some purpose that is needed in the community? And definitely that's what we hope that the expert reviewers will tell us. And then finally, we think about all of these things. We spend a lot of time thinking and talking amongst the editors and maybe iterating with reviewers, but then we make a plan, right? What revisions and experiments are absolutely crucial for the review to be done, for the reviewers' points to be addressed in a realistic way. Does everything need to be done? What is more important? If the authors, which we know they also have limited time, what can be prioritized? And then what recommendations can eventually maybe be toned down or be a little bit more optional? We try to make a plan that works for both the reviewers and for the authors. So just think very holistically about all the feedback that has been given to us. So I think an interesting case study is, what if we have conflicting review reports? Not all expert reviewers are going to agree on different points of a manuscript. And I think I just want to drive home this point that we really consider things holistically. We don't simply count review recommendations. So if I get 3 review reports and 2 say accept and 1 says reject, I'm not going to just accept it because 2 out of 3 said accept, right? I'm going to look very critically at what the expert reviewers are actually saying. What are the qualitative feedback that they are giving is so valuable, more valuable than just accept or reject. If there are things that are conflicting, we may even request a 3rd or 4th reviewer. And these are very important review requests where we may really outline to the reviewer, this is what happened. We have these conflicting reviews. We need you as an expert in the field to really help us understand these conflicting reviews. Like, and this is called an adjudication process. And this is only in those cases where there really are extremely conflicting reviews that we even can't figure out from the holistic reports what is necessary. And we do really discuss a lot as our own editorial team. Our team is about 15 people big right now at iScience. So we do utilize all of our previous expertise as much as we can, but we do rely most on the expert reviewers and their qualitative feedback in terms of what is in the review report. So what if the reviewer feedback is unclear, or if there are some more details needed? And this is kind of, I want to say this because sometimes, there are some miscommunication between authors and reviewers, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but that is where our role as editors really comes in. We do ask clarifying questions to reviewers. I know that if you don't have specific training as being a reviewer, it's a very difficult task. And even if you have training, it's a very difficult task. So we may ask, some clarifying questions if something needs to be a little bit more clear, or if there's some more details. We will definitely ask. We don't want there to be just this endless loop of disagreement between the authors and the reviewers. We will definitely intervene. And we also allow reviewers always to re-review revised manuscripts. If you cannot review it, if the timing doesn't work out right, that is totally okay. We will use our best editorial judgment to kind of step in and re-review it in your place. But we will definitely give you the option to see the manuscript again. We don't want to you have spent so much time, giving your feedback. We want to make sure that the authors have really considered your feedback into making an even stronger manuscript. So that kind of brings me to this idea that how Kanuta and I see ourselves as editors, and I think the broader Elsevier, there's so many editors, and how we really see our position and what we see ourselves doing. And it's really about bridging this gap between authors and reviewers and trying to effectively communicate. And we know that this process of peer review is so stressful for authors, even for reviewers. It is a very stressful process. You're submitting your work out there for others to sometimes, as Kanuta mentioned, sometimes they're a little too harsh in how they critique work. So how do we facilitate this communication between authors and expert reviewers? And sometimes this communication is difficult, and that is really how we see our role as editors at Elsevier. So I think, this has probably been the most important thing that you've learned during this course, is that the peer review process is critical to accurate, transparent, and rigorous publication of science. So how specifically do editors kind of fit into this? And I like to see my role as I listen to both the reviewers and the authors. As Kanuta mentioned, we do not think about these types of reputations, or if someone is very prominent in the field. We try not to think about this. We want to listen to reviewers and authors equally. Sometimes we need to accept criticism. Sometimes editors can get it wrong. That's why we have a really robust rebuttal process, so that we can really accept criticism if we are wrong, and really hear and listen to all voices that are coming together to try to make this science just better. We listen to the experts in the field, and we're prepared to change. Fields are dynamic. Every few years, what is expected in a review might be a little bit different in your field. Like maybe something that 5 years ago would have been fine. Things change. The field is constantly changing. So we are definitely prepared to change as well. And that is how I see my role is constantly changing. I've only been an editor for 2 years. And even within those 2 years, things have changed in certain fields, and how we look at papers and how we understand review reports. And we really want to pay attention to detail. So the detail of review reports, as I mentioned, we read every line very carefully, and also fair decisions that result in just better and more transparent science. And that is what our role is. There's no way around it. That's kind of what we are doing. So I hope that this kind of gives you some insight behind the scenes and to what we are doing. And this is what we talked about in this presentation already. So how editors select reviewers, a little bit about iScience, how editors expect things from reviewers, what they might expect, some tips, some do's and don'ts, which I love reading, making decisions, and then how we see our role as bridging this gap. So just a small summary of the main points that if you don't come away with anything else, I hope you come away with this from our small part in this wonderful webinar series. Reviewers should be honest. They should be critical, but also aware that there's humans on the other side. This is not a place that we need to be mean. Sometimes, there could be there could be some of this that could come across. Reviewers should report on the transparency, the technical rigor, but then also the extension of the work with their expertise in mind. We're not asking you to comment on every single thing in the paper, but specifically your expertise is why we value you so much. Reviewers and authors should feel comfortable and empowered to talk to editors. We are, as Kanuta mentioned, we are responsive. We like getting emails. We want to be able to facilitate this conversation in the best way possible. So just feel empowered to reach out to editors, offer suggestions, volunteers, reviewers, ask questions. That's what we are there for. And editors, we think very seriously about every single decision. We don't make a decision if there's not enough evidence to support a decision. And that is where we really value our expert reviewers to really help us to facilitate this communication, and to think very seriously about every review, every line of every review, and every single decision that we make. So these are the main points I want to, and just wanted to summarize the links that I think some people have been throwing in the question and answer. Thank you so much for that we shared during our discussion. And then thank you so much again for having us. I put on here our email addresses because I said email us, right? Our email addresses and also our Twitter handles. And Kanuta and I are so excited to be on the panel discussion. And thank you so much for listening to us and would love to talk with you more. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kanuta and Michelle, for your presentation. Our next item on agenda would actually to start opening the floor for some of the questions and as well as an panel discussion. I can see that we have received some questions so far. Maybe we can check those quickly on. First question is, except for the scope of the journal, what may drive an editor to reject a manuscript before passing it to reviewers?
Do you want to take it, Michelle, or
Michelle or
do you want me
Kanuta?
to answer this one?
Yeah, I could jump in. I think scope is the number one thing. Sometimes a very clear sort of ethical issue, we will not send it out to review. If there are, sometimes we have to gauge, how much of the extension is based on previous work or previous work from the authors or from other people, from other groups. We think of that too. So those are the three other major points that I think we think about.
I just want to add to what Michelle is saying. If you're, can you hear me, please?
It's breaking a little bit, Kanuta. Yeah.
Should be okay now. I'm sorry, many apologies for that. Just I wanted to add something about what Michelle said about breaking for the authors. But apart from scope and what Michelle just reiterated, is we always believe in supporting advancement is being projected. Is it realistic or not? Maybe these manuscripts are transferred from another journal to us, or we are going to transfer it to another one. What is the sets the criteria for our journal? It does decide if the manuscript is going to go ahead. And at some point, we look very much into that aspect, that it does serve the interdisciplinary communities or not.
If I also may add to that point here, so there is definitely the part about the scope. There is the part about how serious a manuscript would be, just the overall quality that you can sometimes assess, because I believe that editors do not want to submit articles for peer reviewers when it's very clear, no, if I might say, because the manuscript is prepared in such a poor quality, for example. So sometimes I believe part of what the reviewers are a very valuable resource when it comes to editors, and what they would want to do is that they would want to engage the reviewers in manuscripts that are strong candidates for publishing, to get published, because they are fitting within this journal's standards and scope as well. So Dr. Ilchimi, do you have anything to add out of your own experience there?
Actually, we discussed this point previously. After evaluation of the scope and the quality, some papers are don't match the quality of the journal. We know the journals are variable in quality, in strength of each journal. Maybe some manuscripts are suitable for weaker journals or even local journals, not international journals. Also, the ethical issues, like ethical committee approval, not available, like randomized control trials not registered before doing the trial. Also, the score, the plagiarism score, similarity index. If there is a plagiarism from other previous studies, all of these factors should obligate immediate rejection without wasting the time of reviewers. As we hear today, the number of available reviewers is not so high, so we should, as possible, to keep effort of reviewers to the moderate to high quality manuscripts.
I can see there are two more questions, and please keep the questions coming if you have any. So one of the questions that we do have, so as a reviewer, when I read a manuscript and find it very weak, and he used a little bit of an aggressive term there, worthless, I don't believe that this is the kind of language that will be very constructive. Should I fill in a complete report about it, mentioning its weak points, or just simply advise the editors to reject it?
I can jump in. I really, those types of reviews where they just kind of, where they just say, you know, this is weak, it should be rejected. I find them very hard to understand without the specific points. I think the specific points are, you know, very important to me. And I've had points where, you know, reviewers may say it is very, very weak and give me all the points where it is very, very bad. And I feel personally bad that I wasted the reviewer's time, but I feel good that I am giving I am able to give that feedback in a way that is constructive to the authors. You know, there are many reasons why that an author could have left some things out that are extremely important for the field. You know, maybe they are not aware that they should have had that included. Maybe they don't have this technical background to know that this should be a part of it. There are many reasons why that it's not included. And so if you just say that it is very, very weak, this is very difficult for an editor to kind of understand. And then also I will learn from it, right? And I know what to look for in the future. So if I get a paper that is like this in the future, I will not go to reviewers. I'll be like, okay, you know what? I learned from this reviewer that this is not, this is why this is wrong. It is valuable on many levels to the editors and also to the authors to provide some specific, you don't have to go through line by line the manuscript, but these big egregious errors that you may see, it is important to spot them and to cite them.
If I may add, so one of the things,
yeah,
Kanuda, please, if you have anything to add here.
Just a short message that if you want to kind of give this message out that the message, the manuscript is not worth it, reached out to you, it does mean that it has some good enough science to be peer reviewed. It's not without a meaning that you are receiving a manuscript to review. And just because it does not have a good presentation at the moment with your valuable comments, so please do validate if you think a work is very good or very, very weak. That's about, I just wanted to say.
And I just want to add one point that Dr. Elshimi has mentioned multiple times. I even mentioned it on my session earlier. The whole thing about volunteering for peer review is that because you want to help a paper become released to the general community in its best form possible. So in order to help the author, you would need to provide your own feedback. So even if you are rejecting the paper, rejection is a normal part of the whole cycle, but so an author who gets his paper or her paper rejected, at least they walk out with feedback that they can actually use to make the work better. Sometimes it's, as mentioned, sometimes it's the presentation. So the actual scientific work is good, but the presentation is really bad. You get the feedback that we are losing the point what the paper is about. You've done magnificent work in your lab, but you're just presenting it in a way that nobody can really understand or value. So yeah, as a reviewer, if you are signing up to it, then know that the goal in mind that you would have is actually to help the researcher or the author of the paper. Yeah, there are a few quick questions. So do you actually choose the suggested reviewers from an author?
Yeah, so I wanted to just make that point. We do look at the suggested reviewers, and sometimes they're really good suggestions. We, of course, do rigorous checks to make sure there's no conflict of interest, to make sure that, there is no documented trail that they are, related in some way. And I think even in the last 2 years, authors have been getting a lot better at choosing suggested reviewers that are realistic and are appropriate. So we do look at the suggested reviewers, and usually I try to pick one to invite at least. So that's kind of a misconception in the field that we ignore them completely. But of course, if they're all conflicts of interest or something, we're not going to pick them. We do check that that's not a thing.
Okay, so
I just want to add on to what Michelle said is that please suggest realistic reviewer suggestions, like do not suggest very busy people, because anyway, they're not gonna review some paper for us, as in they are busy with their academic stuff like teaching or doing research, taking PhD vivas and things like that. So maybe if possible, please suggest female researchers as reviewers, because Elsevier, Cell Press, iScience is dedicatedly working to bring female researchers into limelight as reviewers and authors. And we also pay attention on different countries, like underrepresented countries or third world countries, as we call them. I think Michelle and I gathered some data, particularly for Egypt, a few days ago, and we found out that Egypt is in our second world. Is it true, Michelle? Second world group of reviewers and authors who publish with us.
That's part of the APC waiver thing. I think that is a little bit separate from this conversation, but yeah,
that is separate. Okay, right. So we are paying focus our attention to bring out reviewers and simultaneously make them our authors from each country. So yeah.
So that is actually a great point that you're hitting there. So you yourselves are editors of some of the premium journals that we have in Elsevier, and throughout the time, so you're saying that you're actually seeing more participation from developing countries, maybe.
Yes, I think that is definitely a point that we want to say. We definitely see an increased amount of manuscripts, and also increasing quality of manuscripts, and increasing quality of reviewer responses and thorough reviews that are from countries that we may just 2 years ago may not have requested review requests from as much as we do now. So I think it's really an homage to these types of programs and all of your hard work that really makes this possible, and allowing there to be training, because like I said, there is never malicious, I never assume malicious things from reviewers or from authors in how they present things. I never assume there is something malicious. I only assume that there is some training that is missing. And I think this is we definitely see the efforts, coming through from our side, definitely.
So that means that so the anecdotal part is that so sometimes in my discussions, people just come up and say, yeah, I'm afraid to submit my paper because I don't have a flashing first world country kind of affiliation to submit my paper. But as a review, as an editor yourself,
yeah, that's a misconception, and that is at the heart of us working at iScience. We are very fair, very supportive of science. We do not take repetition into consideration at all. So please don't fear on reaching out to us directly by email or anything you want to ask us, even after today, I mean.
And then also, I would like to touch down on another point you just mentioned. So as women in science yourself, so actually we have a panel where the majority of people are actually women in science. And as editors yourselves, how do you see things progressing in that regard now? So usually people consider, I don't know, things may have changed a lot during the last 70 years or so, but how do you see things changing recently?
I'm really proud to be a part of Elsevier for this particular reason, because I think Elsevier is really taking a very important stand on this particular topic. If you go to different journal websites across Elsevier, they will give you a breakdown of the percentage of editors that are women. This is a new thing within the last year or so. They will compare it to the field average, so you will know how the journal is doing in this regard. Across our own journals, we are looking very critically at our editorial board to make sure that it is representative of the fields that we are trying to reach. And this is, within the last few years, this has become even more obvious and pressing, and we are looking at the data. Everything we are data driven in how we approach all of these topics and issues. It's not about feelings; it's about the data. So it is something that we think about a lot, and also with our reviewers, making sure that we are keeping up and exceeding targets of abroad in publishing in general. So I think that is a really it's a neat part of my job. I know, to see that happening, and even just 2 years that I've been here, to see it becoming even more in the forefront is awesome.
I just want to add that it's, as Michelle said, we are working a lot on collecting the data and highlighting women in science. And it's not just for our own internal, thing that we are doing this, and this because this is done for a purpose. This is all published as editorials on Elsevier or Cell Press website. I worked before at Springer Nature as an editor. That company as well has been working on this side of the forefront. So academic publishing is not just supporting science, but the community. Very recently, Elsevier has started to publish an inclusion and diversity statement, where if authors want to declare their particular group or minority or underrepresented statements, they can do that. So everything is becoming more and more transparent by the day, and our company is actively working on this. So I think in coming times, you will see a lot of rapid changes as to how we would see everything in the past 2 years.
It's great to hear. Also from Dr. Aya and Dr. Zahra. So actually the conference unit of the National Research Center is very, I would say, very female driven. So with the parts, so building on that part where there's actually the science part and there's also the community part. So as your work in the conference unit itself, so how do you see things going? So for starters, you picked out this specific topic to work on peer review, which I believe was as far as I know, it's not very precedented in Egypt. And what other kind of initiatives do you have there as well?
Actually, we choose these topics because it wasn't taken before in details, and such informations from Dr. Ishimi and from the Elsevier side. And we started at the conference unit. First of all, we started with how to write a manuscript paper by Dr. Mohamed Ishimi, followed by how to select journals for your manuscript paper. And then we thought about these topics because we need to know more and need to become more deep in these topics. And Dr. Muhammad really encouraged us to begin in such a series. And for myself, I was really needed to know more about how to become reviewers as in our National Research Center. And assistant professor is starting of become writing his paper, his manuscript, and next step becoming a reviewers, and further plan in the future how to become an editor and review. So that's step by step. And we started with from the first. Then we start to think about reviewers because also it was requested from many researchers, colleagues in our National Research Centers, who asked about if we can do some webinars or series about how to become a reviewers in international papers. That's it for how to choose these topics as a conference unit.
Maybe I'd like to add that you gave part of the answer in your question, actually, because that type of guide course for reviewers was not done before, actually. Not at my knowledge, not in the National Research Center, maybe not in Egypt. So it was really a catchy topic, I believe, because we have the needs. And our researchers have the needs for it. So I think it was a good choice. And I believe the feedback that is coming to us is telling the same answer too. So I enjoyed it personally. I learned from it a lot. And I believe everyone who attended it really enjoyed it too, and it added to them. And I hope we can follow the attendees maybe through this year. I have that idea, and I believe we can help each other doing this. That maybe we can keep in contact with them through our website. Maybe we can provide them a viewer hub on our website too, so that everyone who attended the course can still keep in contact with us and with everyone who attended us. Maybe sharing their experience, telling more about how they have been able to improve their, not only the quantity of papers they are starting to review, but also the quality of how good they review, and maybe the difference in the journals they may try to present or to propose themselves as reviewers. So that might be one of our intentions at the conference unit, to keep following them and to maybe measure the impact of that course, and maybe find out together if we can do more to help them. Hopefully by the end of the year, maybe we can share again webinar just like this one all together, and tell you maybe the good news. I hope we can hear later on, just about how people have enjoyed that course and have learned from it and have improved themselves. And maybe we can join them monthly, once or every 6 weeks or something, and have discussions with the reviewers and sharing their experience. Maybe we can choose one or more of them to share how they were doing.
You got on mute, Dr. Al-Zahra.
Sorry.
So I believe that you are also saving a bit of a big announcement for something big to the end of the workshop, right? So you're pretty much. You did mention
Yes.
that there are things that people are going to do to stay in touch, and there are big events along the way. Do you want to keep that surprise a little bit to the end?
I don't know. Would you like to give the surprise now and give the announcement now, or would you keep it
Sure.
yet? I would prefer to start now, so that we still have all our audience here and all excited to share the surprise with us. So we are sharing our screen now with a little short video of a little surprise we are keeping for our audience. Should be starting soon, because everyone's getting very excited, just as me.
Welcome, everyone. After organizing the first NLC Grenoble INP International Conference on Science and Sustainable Development, ICSSD, on September 2019, and while still fostering the Egyptian state's inclination towards a knowledge-based economy, it is our great pleasure to welcome you to the second NRC International Conference on Science and Sustainable Development 2021, a virtual conference under the theme of Science, Technology, and Innovation, a step into the future. The conference is under the auspices of His Excellency Professor Khaled Abdel Ghaffar, the Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Conference Chairman Professor Mohammed Hashim, President of the National Research Center, Conference Co-Chairmans Professor Hussein Darwish, the Vice President of the NRC for Technical Affairs, and Professor Mamdouh Muawad, the Vice President of the NRC for Research Affairs and International Relations, Conference Coordinator Professor Hiba Rifai, the Head of the Conference Unit at the National Research Center. Innovation is part of our nature. It simply happens when we try to do things in a different way. To innovate, you just need an idea, a new one that can make our lives better. If you believe you have a new product, process, or service in the fields of strategic industries, emerging technologies and frontier sciences, water research, energy research, agriculture and food, health and population. Then the second ICSSD 2021 is the premier interdisciplinary platform to discuss it. If you have owned a patency within the past 5 years or just submitted for one, if you have reached applicable research results or products, or if you belong to the younger generation of university students and would like to learn how to preserve your copyrights and share your innovative solutions and business ideas, our conference will bring together leading academic scientists, researchers, and entrepreneurs to exchange and share their research results and experiences to meet sustainable development goals. If you have owned a patency within the past 5 years or just submitted for one, if you have reached applicable research results or products, or if you belong to the younger generation of university students and would like to learn how to preserve your copyrights and share your innovative solutions and business ideas, our conference will bring together leading academic scientists, researchers, and entrepreneurs to exchange and share their research results and experiences to meet sustainable development goals.
That looks really exciting. I don't know, maybe a little bit more on the societal impact aspect of things. So we're looking forward to it, and probably we're going to be your partners as well on the conference, and let's see how that will go. So at this point, I'd like to go back a little bit to some of the discussions we had on the peer review process. Dr. Muhammad, you've actually gone through the entire journey of 7 different workshops till we got to this point. If there are a few last take points that you can actually give, so let's put them at, if you are giving 2 important or what kind of like 2 most important points you would give as an advice to reviewers in specific, and maybe other points that you would like to give to researchers as part of your background as a reviewer and academic. So how would you like to give us some few last take points?
Yeah, for reviewers, any reviewer should know the main job, not to make a decision. The first point, to help editors to take this decision based on his recommendations, reviewer recommendations. And the other important point also, to help authors to improve the manuscript. Either the manuscript is accepted now or rejected from the current journal, the comments of the reviewer should be constructive. You help the authors to the weak points and also to the strong points of the manuscript. He can add, he can improve as a teaching, as like a teaching. We know it's a peer review. We are not editor or reviewer, not at a higher position than the author. It's a peer review. All our colleagues, but you give your experience, all you know, to help authors to improve their manuscript, either in the current submission or for future submission. This requires that any reviewer don't concentrate on the decision. Just I accept or I reject the manuscript, but should give details on the manuscript, and for each point, as much as possible, should be reasoning for the comment of the reviewer. Why this point is weak? Give adequate reasons for that, and if possible, also to give evidence from literature, previous literature that support his point of view. This is the main recommendation from me to reviewers. As a researcher for general, we should keep ourselves updated to the recent research, everyone in his field. This will help us to reach new ideas for future manuscripts. And also, we should improve our writing skills, how to present our data. In Egypt, data may be available, يعني, a lot of data, but how to convert data to a manuscript, how to present this data, how to make a research from this data. As an example, my university, especially Qasr Al Aini Medical School, Cairo University, we share in about 30% management of patients in Egypt. There is a lot of data. How about convert the data available? How to convert it to research? How to make a good research? The problem always is how to write, how to present data, how to make a new idea based on the available data already. This is a great task. This webinar and series of webinars and also other webinars done here in National Research Center and other university all will help Egyptian researchers to reach this point, to improve our manuscripts, to improve presentation of data. Then we can submit it to iScience journals.
So that's really comprehensive there. So there are a lot of resources that you currently have now. So as authors, as reviewers, and even sometimes as editors as well. What I would say, I believe it's it is a lot of resources that you can go through, even including this webinar here that we're going through as well. So as few action points I would recommend to build out on this. So the first thing that you would need to do is actually, if you haven't watched this entire series, please do watch it. Kindly know that for any of the attendees, so this is the only English language session that we've had out of this series. We do have some plans to actually build more reviewer training workshops in English as well. So while that happens, I believe that there are a lot of good points within this session here. If you can speak Arabic, then you can follow up with the previous 6 sessions as well. So that's one important point. Another important point is that, as we mentioned earlier, there is the Elsevier certified reviewer course. We did share its link a bit earlier. Dr. Muhammad has shared tons of other resources for reviewers from many other publishers. These all help build more experience and more expertise for reviewers as well. It did also mentioned Publons, for example, which is operated by another company than Elsevier itself, but it's still, we believe that it could be very useful resource to you as well. Another point, may I remind you again about 2 things here. So there is the Reviewer Hub, the Elsevier Reviewer Hub. This is where you can create an account and you can actually sign up as a reviewer, and you select which journals you're interested in reviewing for. You would need to complete the Certified Peer Reviewer course, and this would be a great point to start with the Reviewer Hub. Another thing is that Dr. Muhammad has already mentioned that he has a call for reviewers for one of the journals he's on the editorial board for, and he did mention that he's willing to take up new reviewers if you've attended 3 of the sessions here as well. If you can send them the certificates, he's shared the links on the previous sessions. Perhaps we can share it again, Dr. Muhammad. And I also would like to bring to your attention another thing here. So one of the important things that we can actually do together to stay in touch after this webinar series ends. So let me share it there. Sorry. I'm having a little bit of a problem sharing my screen. Yeah, sorry. Should appear now. I'm having a lot of technical glitches today.
Dr. Muhammad, can you meanwhile, Shalan, be ready? Can you tell us about your offer again?
Okay, I am now trying to share.
Okay, I can stop sharing.
Just 1 minute, Yani. Actually, as editor-in-chief in one of the urology journals, we need not only reviewers in urology, but we also in need for reviewers in other fields. As you know, many manuscripts and many studies are in many fields, not only urology. As an example here, other specialties like pathology, like clinical pathology, radiology, radiotherapy, pharmacology. Also, there are animal studies, internal medicine, pediatrics, microbiology, nephrology, community medicine and public health, pediatric surgery, oncology. All of these fields share in urology manuscripts because all fields are share in the same share in the science. Yani when we do a manuscript or a study, we are in need of these fields and subspecialties. So any one of our colleagues who want to be a reviewer in these subspecialties can send to me my email, and inshallah we will try to send him paper for reviewing. But when he fulfill all of these criteria, at least 3 certificates out of the 7 sessions of our series of how to be a reviewer or a good reviewer, and also the other data important like name, institutional email, past experience in peer review, past publications, and affiliation. We announced this in the previous 2 sessions, and now again. And actually, some colleagues send emails to me to share in peer review activity. And soon, inshallah, we will send to them invitations for peer review.
I will. That's
again, Dr. Muhammad, please. If you can add it in the chat.
What? What again?
Your email.
I don't hear. An email. It's appear on the screen.
Can you put it in
I can write it down on chat. I will write it down on chat.
Okay. I actually wrote it. Okay.
Okay, so as we are nearing the end of our session here today, I believe there are some few good questions still coming on. I'm not quite sure that we're gonna have time to address them all. So yeah, I just want to tell all our attendees that we want to stay in touch with you and follow up on how you are working through your review journey. So we have created a hashtag that we would like you to use on social media. It's called review_guide21. In name of the session here. So if you can tell us how your review journey is going. Of course, you have to keep the confidentiality of which papers you are currently reviewing, or depending on the journal that you have already reviewed. So it's tell us about your journey, tell us what's going on, tell us your feedback as well to the sessions that you've had here. And the links that you can see as well, so some of the links here are for the social media channels for Elsevier Africa. So we are on Facebook page and a Facebook group where we can have a lot of discussions. Twitter, Instagram as well as our YouTube channel where you can find tons and tons of resources for authors, for researchers, for research management, for editors, and so forth. And also there is the Facebook page for the conference unit at the NRC. And the last one is the YouTube channel the NRC for the NRC conference unit. I will write it down on chat because this is where you can find all the recordings for all the sessions in this series here. So once again, please start using the hashtag that you can see on screen. Also, for the certificates, we're going to share on chat now the link for the same link for registration that we have. Yes, I did drop out the conference unit website conference. Maybe I can put it down on chat again. For the certificates part themselves, so you used a Google spreadsheet to register for this session. We ask anybody who's attending here now who has not signed up on the Google Drive organized by the conference unit to sign up on that sheet again. All attendees who have both signed up for the session on the Google Drive as well as attended on Zoom, because Zoom is recording the emails. Zoom has the emails of anybody who's attending with us on screen again on Zoom. So there will be a cross check for people who has registered and attended at the same time. You're going to receive emails for how you can obtain a certificate for this session, for the 7th session from Researcher Academy. Within 2 weeks, while we process the attendance records for people across all 7 sessions, we are going to send you within 2 weeks' time. We are going to send you instructions on how to get a combined certificate for attending the entire course here, the NRC Elsevier Guide for Peer Review, sharing Professor Mohammed Al-Shimi's expertise. So can we have, Dr. Al-Zahra, can we have the link on screen, please?
Yes.
We'll be sharing also the conference unit website address so that you can follow all the upcoming events and all the past events too. And you can also apply or register for the upcoming conference that we just announced about. So just as Khaled is writing on his screen now, it's www.confunrc.com. You will find all the past events that were organized by the conference unit, including the reviewer course that we just are about to end today. You will find all the previous recordings, all the previous Google Drive links for the previous certificates, as I see lots of questions about it. Whoever didn't find his certificate can go back to the website and to the session in question, and you will find the Google Drive form in the past events. There you can download it. It's a PDF printable version. Regarding the certificate for today, this will be through Elsevier, just as Khaled mentioned, and regarding the whole course certificate from Researcher Academy, I think this will need some more time. This says, as Khaled explained too, about 2 weeks to just double check whoever attended at least 6 sessions out of the 7, so that you can get a certificate from the Researcher Academy for completing the Elsevier NRC guide course for reviewers. Please start using the hashtag, keep visiting all the links you have on the screen, keep going to the website of the conference unit. If you have something to add, Khaled or any of our speakers.
So I believe there are some good questions that we are still getting on the Q&A, but minding the time constraints currently, we might want to relegate some of the questions here to our esteemed panelists, and maybe we could reply in email to some of the questions that we have here. Would that be okay? Michelle, I'm just going to, I'll go through the questions. I'll select the questions most relevant to our discussion here today. I'll send them to you via email, and then we can actually email it back to attendees. And actually, maybe Dr. Al-Zahra, we can post them on the conference unit webpage as well.
That would be great.
Dr. Muhammad, there are some questions that seem very pertinent to what you've discussed as well. Would that be okay?
Okay, of course.
Okay, so we will be sending you the questions by Mr. Khalid, and we'll be waiting for your answers, and we will be sharing it on our websites for the audience.
Okay, so once again, I'd like to remind you, so I've shortened down the link for the Google document where you would register for this session here. So it's bit.ly/p-review-today's date. Please make sure to sign up by the end of today, because registration will still be available just till the end of the day. Once you have registered and you have actually attended on Zoom, then you will receive an email with the instructions to get your certificate for today's session. And also you will receive later on communication on the combined certificate for the entire course. I'd like to thank all our panelists for their time here today. I'd like to thank the NRC conference unit for organizing this magnificent event. Many special thanks to Professor El-Shimi for the tremendous of efforts he's put down throughout this entire series, and very, very special thanks as well to Michelle and Kenuda. Thank you for your time and your insights here today. So it's been quite a lovely journey with all of you, and we thank all our audience for their time, for the effort, for the dedication that they have shown us throughout the entire series. We hope that this session today was worthy of your time, was actually something that you will feel beneficial with a direct impact to your day-to-day work as academics. Thank you all so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on upcoming events as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure too from us.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed Shimi. Thank you, Engineer Khalid Shaalan, Professor Dr. Kanuda, and Dr. Michelle. Thank you for these eminent panelists today, and we hope that we meet again soon for another series webinars with National Research Centers.
Thank you.
So very especially Michelle, for starting your day with us. Very good morning. That was very generous from you. Thank you, Kenuda, for sharing part of your vacation time, and hope you will enjoy the rest of it in peace, and stay safe, stay healthy and happy. Thank you, Professor Muhammad, for sharing your time and expertise with us all through the 6-7 sessions today. That was really an honor for myself. I really, very, very thankful. And thank you, Engineer Khalid Shaalan, for always being the supporting part of Elsevier, who always, you just don't keep any time and effort for helping us. And this is something I always want to thank you about in person, and for being supportive for the conference unit at the National Research Center in collaboration with the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. Thank you for your time, for organizing this course, and hopefully, and I'm sure we will never stop keeping the good work. And I'm still eager to start organizing more series with Elsevier. Our audience have been asking for lots of other topics and their feedbacks, so I will keep in touch with you with all the topics we are keep discussing about, because we have a lot of work to do for the coming month. I'd like to thank my colleague, Dr. Aya Khalil, for being part of the nice work, and I really enjoyed it with her. I'd like to thank Professor Hiba Rafai for the head of the conference unit for giving us this opportunity. I feel really blessed of being part of the day and the whole series and the whole work. I'd like to remind our audience that you can keep in touch with us through the website and through the Facebook page. You can find all the recordings on the YouTube channel of the conference unit at the National Research Center in Egypt. Hope you all enjoyed the day just as I did, and wishing you all for the rest of the day. We're starting very early in other places in the world. Thank you for all the audience we have been having all through the sessions, not only from the National Research Center in Egypt, but also from various universities and research academies inside Egypt, and also in other countries from Africa and the Middle East, some from Europe, some from the Americas, from Asia. Actually, I feel really proud for bringing this work to light. So hope you all enjoyed it, and keep following us. I think that's it. So thank you all again. That was Dr. Zahra Ahmed Al-Waifi, Assistant Researcher at the Child Health Department of the Medical Research Division of the National Research Center, and Dr. Aya Khalil from Biological Anthropology Department at the Medical Research Division of the National Research Center too, and conference unit members. Thank you very much for being part of this event, and stay safe and see you very soon.